What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. It is me, Cameron Lawrence, and we are talking Week 11, buy lows, sell highs. We got 3 of each for you so we can get that team ready for that championship run. We are almost done with these on the years because those trade deadlines are coming up quick. Some of you maybe this week, some of you next week, the week after, some of you maybe the week before the playoffs. But they are quickly approaching. You have very limited time to make sure that your team is championship ready. So we're going to get it there today together. Before we jump into these 6 players, make sure that you turn on those notifications, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single chance to better your team. And our first buy low, we're actually going to start with a quarterback, and I'm going to give you an extra guy with this one too. So make sure you listen up here. It's Lamar Jackson. Now his last 3 games, super disappointing. 12, 15. Outperformed by pretty much everybody these last 3 games. But on the season still has 5 top 10 finishes, 3 top 5 finishes, and he has one of the best quarterback schedules remaining. Cincinnati, Chargers, Rams, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Miami. And one of the biggest things for them, for the Ravens, is these are all going to be competitive games. These are going to be games where Lamar has to score touchdowns, where Lamar doesn't get pulled in the third quarter. You're not worried about with these games. He's going to have to score. He's going to have to run the ball, throw well, and he's going to continue to run the ball on the season. Lamar Jackson, only 3 games with less than 8 rush attempts. He's on pace for 3,600 passing yards, which would be a career high, and 800 rushing yards. And he looks good when he's out there, right? He had an amazing stretch to start the year, slowed down against Arizona, Seattle, and Cleveland. Obviously, Cleveland's going to be a tough matchup, even though a lot of points were scored in that one. Seattle was a blowout, and then, in that Arizona game, just nothing quite clicked for them there. I told you I was going to give you an extra one with Lamar Jackson, and it's Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers should go along with Lamar Jackson. Both of them should be buys because I think both of them are going to be raring up. Got great matchups, need to produce, and I think they're going to start doing that down the stretch here. The first guy we should sell is Kyren Williams, the running back for the Los Angeles Rams. You may have forgotten about him. I got a text from my buddy Ty, one of the other fellas, and he goes, guys, until tonight, I had forgotten that Kyren Williams existed, which is, it might feel like that. They had the bye. He's been gone 4 full games. But if you remember, he was off to that fantastic start, putting up running back. I think he was running back 1 or 2 overall in week 2. Took over for Cam Akers, making us, you excited if you, like me, grabbed him off the waiver wire. However, once Cooper Kupp returned, his targets, he saw 2 of them in the 2 games with Cooper Kupp. He was thriving off of 20-plus carries. And at this point of the season, the reason we're selling Kyren Williams here is I don't believe that he's going to see that much volume coming back. He's a 195-pound running back who's already had an ankle injury this season. I'd be shocked if they go, all right, we're going to just pull Henderson and Freeman. We're going to give you what you saw before. I'm not saying he's not going to be the lead back, but I do think it's going to be closer to him seeing only 50% of snaps, 50% of the workload as they work in those other guys, because we can't pretend like Kyren Williams was this efficiency machine who looked amazing out there. In his last 2 games, he did look a lot better. But before that, and now he's coming off an injury, I just don't think that he's that much. The gap is that big between him and Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. It's there. No, don't get me wrong. Like Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman don't look great by any means. But there is still not enough of a gap where I think they're just going to give it all back to Kyren Williams, where he can be a top 12, top 15 guy. All right, now we have one of my favorite guys coming into the season. It is Devonta Smith, and I'm going to be honest. I had to talk with the other 2 fellows to make sure my judgment wasn't clouded because I just wanted Devonta to succeed so badly. But they agree that Devonta should be a buy right now. Last season, after he came off his bye, 8+ targets in every game except for 1. Last season, Dallas Goedert missed multiple games at the end of the season. Devonta Smith saw 8+ targets in each of those games, right? The volume's going to have to come back because Dallas Goedert's going to be out. They need someone to fill in, and Devonta's that guy. He sees Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, and Dallas in his next 4 games. Not exactly beautiful for wide receiver production. However, these are games that Philly's going to have to score points, and if they want to score points, they go to A.J. Brown, they run the ball, and they go to Devonta Smith, right? Obviously, that's pretty much all the facets of the game, But Devonta Smith is going to be a big part of that. And then they say Seattle, the Giants, and Arizona in the playoffs, which is a juicy schedule for wide receivers. Games without Dallas Goedert, like I said, 8+ targets, but 13+ fantasy points in all those games. So at worst, right, he's a solid wide receiver too without Dallas Goedert. But yeah, 21% target share this season isn't fantastic, but he's still top 25 in targets, routes, air yards, unrealized air yards, deep targets, receptions, route runs, and receiving yards. And at the end of the day, he's just a very talented wide receiver on a very good team, and I'm going to bet on that more times than not. Speaking of a very talented player, we have Kenneth Walker, but he is a sell for me. Last 3 games, he's been outsnapped by Zach Charbonnet. He's had more opportunities, right? He had 19 carries in the last game, which is good to see if you do have Zach Charbonnet after 8 and 9 carries the 2 weeks before. But this was our worry all season long with Charbonnet, or with Kenneth Walker, rather. No receiving work. Very limited receiving work. Only 3 receptions in his last 3 games. But he was bailed out isn't the right word. I don't like saying this. But he did have a 64-yard reception, which he has never done. So, or hasn't done this season, rather. So you're not going to be able to bank on that every single game, but at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that Kenneth Walker is a big play guy. Zach Charbonnet also ran more routes than Walker. So the reason I would sell Kenneth Walker is people still view him as a top 10 running back. They still do, and I still think that he maybe has that ceiling. So you're trading him at that ceiling because Charbonnet, continues to be more involved. They continue to give him, short yardage work. They continue to give him receiving work. It's just going to take away from Kenneth Walker, and it just limits what he could potentially do. And then his schedule is not fantastic coming up. He's got the Rams, San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco, and Philly. That is a tough matchup for a running back, even if he's getting the full volume. But now that he's splitting snaps with Zach Charbonnet here and there, it's just not something I love come playoff time. A guy that I want to buy in on is Devon Achane, sorry. And you know what? He does have a brutal playoff schedule as well, right? We just talked about Dallas, San Francisco, Philly. That's a brutal playoff schedule for Kenneth Walker. Devon Achane, Jets, Dallas, Baltimore. But honestly, who cares? 450 rushing yards on 37 carries and 3 touchdowns with 7 total, in 3 games with 7 total touchdowns. That is ridiculous. Those are bonkers numbers. Those are ridiculous. Miami as a team is averaging more than 4 yards before contact. There are teams averaging less than 1 right now. Miami is more than 4. Against the Giants, he played snaps. This was his last game before he got hurt. He played snaps in the backfield, in the slot, out wide, and even took in that inline Tyreek spot where Tyreek kind of squats down. Right? They moved him all over. And since week 4, right, Raheem Mostert's running back 2 right now. What about him when he comes back? Well, we saw, first of all, that they were both able to be very productive together. And since week 4, Raheem has only had 1 game with more than 13 carries. And he was out-carried by Achane in both weeks 4 and 5. And his receiving work has gone down to just minimal receiving work, 1 to 2 targets a game. So with that, Achane is the younger running back. Achane is a guy who is so explosive. We saw it. We saw that McDaniels wants to use him all over the field. So yeah, I'm gonna bet on the talent here, despite the schedule and despite the fact that they already have a little more of a crowded running back room. And the last guy I want to sell is Mr. Saquon Barkley. And guys, I understand the volume's insane. The volume's crazy. And yes, it will be there. But 2 words for you: Tommy DeVito. I mean, I don't care what you have to say other than that. They have Tommy DeVito, and they play New Orleans, Philadelphia, and the Rams in the playoffs, who are all good against the run this season. So they're good against the run. He's on a team that's not going to score any points. And worst of all, his receiving work has been down the last couple of weeks. You would think, okay, we got Tommy DeVito. We want him to move the ball. Nope. Receiving work has been down. It's not a pretty sight for Saquon. I still think Saquon is viewed as a top 5 running back, especially for some people who see it's just going to be crazy volume, which it will. It's just efficiency is not going to be great, and he's not giving the receiving work and definitely not going to get the touchdowns that you want from a top 5 back. So we would move on from Saquon Barkley. Alrighty, guys, thank you for listening to our buy lows and sell highs. Make sure you come back next week for our last buy low, sell high video, and we will reveal what is to come before week 13. As always, stay safe, make some trades, and let's go win a fantasy championship. Deuces.